ma'am. Mechanized harvesting. It is practiced with the help of machines called harvester combine. It harvests the crop, threshes and separates the husk from grain simultaneously. Clean grains
Correct.
come out from the machine, which are stacked in gunny bags. Uses. Mechanized harvesting is convenient and fast, and it helps in harvesting the crop well before the produce is affected by rain. This helps the farmer in storing or transporting the produce to the market immediately.
Correct. So basically what happened is that, in developed countries, this is a very common practice, as I said, so there are also machines, which is a combination of everything. They harvest, as in they harvest also, they pick up the grain, they thresh also, and then they do the work of winnowing also. It's like everything put together, right? And on one end, as the clean crops will just come out. It's like, all in one machine. So in one machine will do the work of all the three things. So the time taken is also less. It is less cumbersome. It's automated. It's mechanized. So no interference of human error also, because when you are plucking, so there are ins and outs, actually advantages and disadvantages of both, right? When you're doing manual harvesting, for example, you're plucking brinjals, right? And in brinjals, you will see that there are, chances that you might find a brinjal which is a little half rotten. So you will not, even if you pluck, you will not put it in the two-cell basket. You will put it in the waste basket. But a mechanized harvesting machine will not understand. It will randomly pick up all the vegetables, right? So one more thing, so there are ins and outs of both manual and mechanized. Even in manual, you will find, a tomato is so small, it is green in color. It will take 1 more week to ripen. And so you will only pick up red tomatoes which are kind of ripe and mature. But a harvesting machine will not understand. It will randomly pluck everything, a small, ripe, not ripe, green, red, orange, yellow, everything. Right? So there are advantages and disadvantages of using both. Correct? It's just that with a machine, there has to be a certain percentage of error which happens. That has to be taken into consideration. There will be wastage. Right? So mechanized harvesting is convenient. It is fast, right? And it does not get affected due to rain or any other atmospheric conditions. And it helps the farmer in storing or transporting the produce to the market immediately. So just imagine, as I said, from here the harvesting is happening, here the plucking is happening, right? Here the segregation is happening where all the leaves are getting segregated, and here only the vegetables are coming out. And once it's coming out here, maybe there could be one more machine attached here where, weighing, by taking the weight, maybe 10 kg per gunny bag, it will just fill up the gunny bag, so the gunny bag is ready to go to the market. So these are all integrated machines. Okay. Now comes the most important part. Once the harvesting is done, now comes storage. Remember last time also we studied that storage has to be done really well for many reasons. One is that for selling, and the other reason is for storing for the next season, because you need to sow seeds for the next season also, no? So you need healthy grains. So you need to store it properly. So this is the time when they segregate it. They would understand, they would know that maybe, we'll keep 10% for next year to store, and remaining, maybe 80% will sell, and the remaining 10% will use it for our own personal use for consumption. So accordingly, they'll store. Storage, okay. Okay, Ronak, read.
Yes, ma'am. Storage of grains. Storage of produce is an important task if the crop grains are to be kept for a longer time. They should be safe from moisture, insects, rats, and microorganisms. Grains are stored at a dry place away from the moisture, stored in metallic bins or in silos made from mortar, stored in gunny bags in big godowns called granaries as a big reserve stock meant for public distribution system PDS for poor people or as a buffer stock to meet emergency requirements. Nitrogen is blown into granaries to push the oxygen out.
Correct. So basically what happens is that, so you tell me, what do you understand? What did you understand, Ronak, from all these?
Yes, ma'am. I understood that storage is also an important part of crop production, as we have to keep the harvest or the seeds safe from uh, organisms or microorganisms. So, ma'am, the harvest or the seeds are stored in like granaries or silos or bins.
Hmm.
Um, and ma'am, the nitrogen also blown in the granaries to push the oxygen out from the silos or granary.
Okay. So basically, the thing is that what happens is that, as I said, that the storage is very important. It needs to be kept safe from moisture. Why moisture? What damage can moisture do to the grains? Moisture, remember I told you moisture is the worst thing one can have, because if there is moisture, what is the meaning of moisture? Moisture means there is certain amount of water in it, right? It has come in touch with water. So what moisture can do is that it can attract not only germs, but it can attract rodents, it can attract bacteria, it can attract,
Ma'am,
fungus.
fungus.
Yes, it can attract a lot of things. So water is quite a deterrent. One has to keep it as much dry as possible. The grains have to be kept dry. To keeping it, there are certain places, for example, West Bengal humidity is very high. As in the humidity in the air, moisture content in high air is almost 92%. Can you believe it? So it's so difficult to store grains here. So what they do is that, they use dehumectant, or, there are certain substances or certain chemicals they use to keep the air dry, to keep the storage space moisture free, to keep the grains inside the gunny bag completely dry, ekdam dry, right? Insects, once there is an insect, just like germs, they multiply randomly. They multiply really, really fast. They have so much of ready-made food to eat, so they don't mind multiplying at a speed, right? Rats, you will never get to see a rat, but you will only get to see when the damage is already done. So one has to be, people who are seasoned, they know how to store grains. They will already do a pest control of the entire storage area, and only then they will store. And as I said, microorganisms can be really very dangerous because you really can't see them with your naked eyes, but it does all the damage. Okay. Grains are stored at a dry place away from moisture. They are stored in, every metal is being chosen. Certain metals are chosen, for example, maybe aluminium or tin or whatever, stainless steel, which are not very reactive metals. You will not find them.
They do not corrode.
They do corrode. Metals corrode. Iron metal do corrode. Copper will react with oxygen. So they will not use iron or something like that. They will use corrosion-free, corrosion-free metals, less reactive metals. They will use maybe stainless steel, so that even if it's outside and even if it is raining, still it will not, have any kind of rust or anything. So these, what are silos? Silos are basically these silos. Right? So these are like huge granaries, huge. They're like really huge, right? And there are certain storage houses which are made out of Mortar means like normal, the cement bricks that we have our building with. They're made out of that also. So it depends from location to location, basically, which place will be dry, which place, for example, in a place like Rajasthan, which is generally dry, doesn't have much rain, does not have much moisture. So they can keep it in a normal mortar cement granary. They really don't need to bother much, right? And in villages, you will see that in earlier days, they used to make mud granaries made out of clay, basically. Granaries made out of clay, and they used to have thatched roof like this. And this is like a granary. And they used to have a small hole here. and they could have closed it with a lid, big lid. So every time they needed some grain, they would open the lid, and the grain will just flow out from here, and then again they'll close the lid. This is a clay granary, but this is not very durable, especially the thatched roof at the top with rains, and rodents are very easy to enter. Rain can damage moisture. We know clay attracts moisture. So there are a lot of disadvantages. Now basically the grains are just not directly kept, that you make a granary or a silo and directly keep it there. No, they are stored in gunny bags. Basta, matlab, gunny bags in big godowns called granaries, as a big reserve stock meant for PDS, public distribution system for poor people, or as a buffer stock to meet emergency requirements. For example, the pandemic that we are having right now, so there are quite a few people in India, almost 50 to 60% of the population, this is an emergency situation for us, by the way, huh? So the government normally reserves certain grains for PDS, right, as a buffer stock, as an extra stock. And this stock is now being used and it's being distributed free of cost to poor people. So for example, every week they will, per person will get 5 kg of rice, 1 kg of dal, without paying anything. They'll get some atta, they'll get some pulses, 1 kg each every week. If there are 5 members in the family, they'll get 5 times of this. Because during the pandemic, most of them do not have a job, this migrant workers, they've left the job, they've gone back to their villages, so they're not able to do much. So government is giving them these grains for free, which they had stored it as a buffer stock to meet emergency requirements, right? Now, as I said, many a times nitrogen is blowed into the granary to push out the oxygen, right? So the chips packet that, many of you fondly eat, the chips packet that you see, right? It is all swollen, isn't it? Whereas the chips would be till this much only. The wafers would be this much only if you see, but the remaining portion is all hawa, all air.
Ma'am, it's nitrogen.
Yeah, it's nitrogen. Why? Why nitrogen?
Ma'am, may I?
Yeah.
Ma'am, nitrogen is used because nitrogen means does not allow other microbes to react with the food.
No, basically what happens is that, when they inject nitrogen here, it pushes out oxygen. Because we know now most of the organisms, they thrive in oxygen. Every living organism requires oxygen to grow. Be it a germ, be it a microorganism, be it a bacteria, fungus, whatever. So if the packet does not have any oxygen in it, then there will be no germs in it. So how to do that? How to take it out? They inject it with nitrogen gas. So now the chips packet does not have any bit of oxygen. So your chips, your wafers are free from any germs. Okay. All right. Now we come to food from fruits and vegetables. All this while we were discussing about grains, pulses, and all those stuff. But there are a whole lot of fruits and vegetables which are also, being farmed, right? So food from fruits and vegetables can be studied under 3 headings: growing vegetables, growing fruits, and storage of fruits and vegetables. Okay, Varnika.
The PDS, ma'am, they
Public
give it from,
distribution.
yes, ma'am, they give it for free, but what about the means quality? Yeah, if they store it properly under safe conditions like that.
Yeah, so the quality would depend actually. To be very honest, these are normally old stocks. Because the fresh stock is always the good stuff, the fresh stock is always sold in the market. They get a better price for that. And what is not sold, they keep a little bit of buffer anyways. As I said, no, that out of the 100%, they keep 10% for next year grains to be sown as seeds, 10% maybe for their own consumption, and they sell off the remaining 80%. Out of that 80%, what government does is that maybe, they reserve out of that 80%, they keep 20% as a buffer. Buffer means as a stock for emergency. So that keeps on adding up. And not always is the storage successful, not always is the quality also good. It depends actually from how they have been stored, how they have been transported, etc.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Akshat, what is the difference between growing grains and difference between growing fruits and vegetables?
Ma'am, growing grains, they need a little less fertilizers, but if you go in the case of fruits and vegetables, you need to take extra care, and you need to sprinkle more fertilizers because they attract bugs and insects a lot more.
Correct. And with regards to storage, what are the pros and cons of storing grains and storing fruits and vegetables?
You can store grains in Uh, I I don't actually know any pros and cons of storing grains,
Hmm.
but I do know vegetables. If you are the pro of storing vegetables is it uh,
You don't even have to say the pros and cons. You can just go ahead as in discussing on the storage pattern.
ma'am, grains can be stored in sacks, but sacks like jute sacks or anything.
Hmm.
But vegetables have to be stored separately or in they have to be like kept fresh.
Correct. So I think so you're getting, you're getting the way. So just go ahead, discuss a few more points. You're getting closer.
Um,
Ma'am,
a
may
little
I?
cold storage is needed, I guess, for vegetables.
Correct. For vegetables and fruits, you need cold storage. Why, Akshat?
Uh, it
Ma'am,
might prevent
One
some
second, Ronak.
organisms and rotting of the fruit or vegetable.
Yeah, so why does rotting happen? Why does rotting doesn't happen in grains?
No.
Okay, okay. Yeah, Ronak?
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, because sorry, ma'am, vegetables and fruits have iron in them, so they rot.
Iron? No. It's so simple. All of you, grains, anybody else can have a given idea why fruits and vegetables needs to be stored in a cold storage and not in case of grains. Grains can be just stored in granaries and silos and gunny bags. Who can tell me? Who can give the right answer? So the major difference between grains and fruits and veggies, right? I'll just write it completely so that it's easy for you to understand. Grains, fruits and veggies. You will always find grains are dry. You take rice, you take pulses, dal, dried corn. You take any dal, chawal, wheat, you take anything, millets, everything is dry. They don't have a bit of moisture in it. But fruits and veggies, all of them have moisture. All of them have moisture, and because they have moisture, they have a very low shelf life. This is what I wanted, somebody to say. Shelf life, it's all about shelf life. A grain has a shelf life. You can store a grain closing your eyes, from a few months, say for 6 months to maybe a year. Even if you just keep it outside in a box, in a dabba, in a gunny bag, whatever, yes, you need to take care properly of those insects and rodents and all. But fruit and moisture, no, max to max 3 to 7 days. I told you, no, moisture does all the damage. The moment there is moisture, there is water content, that thing is susceptible to damage. Keep it in a dried condition, it will not damage. For example, the strawberry. After you pluck the strawberry, at max you can have the strawberry for 2 days. A proper strawberry. Right? Just for 2 days. But dry this strawberry in sunlight because strawberry has a lot of moisture. If you eat, you'll find it's so juicy. It's just juice. There's hardly any pulp. But dry a strawberry, it will take several days to dry because it's got so much of moisture. Dry a strawberry and keep it. You can keep it for 3 months. No moisture, so keep it as long as you want. Candy, sugar candy, strawberry candy, store it in a candied form. Store it in the form of a jam. Whatever, right? So the shelf life, so that's the reason why to maintain it, you need to store fruits and vegetables in cold storage to keep their moisture content intact. If you keep it in a normal place, it will lose all its moisture. It will have a wrinkled, sagged look. Nobody will have or buy that fruit, right? You go to a market, you can understand which orange is fresh and which one is a 5-day-old orange because it will have all the kinds of wrinkles and it will lose its shine. It will become brownish in color. But vis-a-vis, if there is for example, oranges are cultivated mainly in Himachal Pradesh, Kashmir, and all those places. But it takes a while to, transport from Himachal Pradesh to, say, for example, Tamil Nadu. It will take quite a few days. Obviously, it will not come by a 2-hour or a 3-hour flight, right? So it will come through a proper roadway or maybe a railway, which will take a jolly good 5 days, 10 days, whatever. All this while, maybe, the first, it has been plucked on day 0, right? After day 0, they did day 1, they did all kind of segregation. They kept the rotten oranges on one side, not so rotten one side, small size, they have sold it in the local market, big size they sent abroad, medium size they want to send it to Tamil Nadu, right? So day 2, they did all the packing. They did it in crates. Some were very good quality crates because they had to send abroad, right? They had to be kept in cold storage. There were some they did in medium size, good, packaging, sturdy packaging, because they had to be shipped to Tamil Nadu via trucks, which were like heavy duty trucks, which will go through a lot of bumps and all those stuff. So that's the reason why, they had different kind of packaging, and the local ones did not need packaging at all. They were just put into gunny bags and sent to the local wholesale market. Right? So the first 2-3 days were already occupied here. Right? So here it's very cold. It was snowing. So the oranges were perfect, fine, intact. But midway, maybe the 3rd day it started. And it took maybe, 10 days to come. So 13 days. 13th day, day 13, it reached Tamil Nadu market. So how many oranges do you think will be in good shape? Somewhere midway, maybe, they had to halt, or maybe, by now the logistics is such that, they've already packed it in a cold storage condition and they have shipped it to Tamil Nadu so that they're as fresh as if they were freshly picked from Himachal Pradesh, even after 13 days, as if they looked as if they were like that. Right? So storage plays a very, very, very important role. Just imagine if they were not shipped along with cold storage, none of the oranges would have been sold. All of them would have rotten on the way, on the 8th day itself. And it would have been such a loss. The truck coming, not one truck, 2 trucks, but maybe, 30, 40 trucks carrying tons and tons of oranges coming all the way from Himachal Pradesh to Tamil Nadu, it would have incurred a huge loss.